This is it?
I've got a heap here. Now, in that room,
Covered.
in that,
Hello.
I'll turn it off.
Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Good evening again. It's good to see you all out again. Just a quick few announcements, and especially because by time the presentations are over, it will be Sabbath for those who understand that. We just want to make sure you understand how you can get more information. If this is your first time, up on the screen, not sure if you can see it if you're close up, but on the TV screens you can catch it as well, are the contact information for different things. So for the first one, church email, what you see there are some books that are coming in that you can order through the church. And if you email through there, it'll be 57 books. So in essence, it'll be first come, first serve. But if you call 238-1080 or email, we can get your contact information. If you do so sooner, the better for you. But also on Thursday, Amazon will be back in stock with the books. So that means if you want to order straight from Amazon and just wait a week or so, how long it takes to get to Bermuda, you can do it that way. So either you can send in your information to the top church email address or call 238-1080, 57 books in stock, or just wait until Thursday, Friday, basically, for Amazon to restock. If, once again, you're new, you can download by purchase on an ebook on Kindle. The same book, remember, is called Self-Heal by Design by Barbara O'Neill. It's a green-looking book, so if you see it pop up, you know that's what it is. For some of you who wanted other DVD presentations, even if this is your first one, you want to see some other presentations, if you email Barbara's daughter, as seen up on the screen, dougloberg@me.com, you can get other presentations. Also, just go on YouTube, you type in Barbara O'Neill, you'll get many different presentations that she was not able to get to this week. She also has a YouTube channel, Misty Mountain Retreat, named after her health retreat in Australia. As some of you heard also, if you want to get to the U.S., where she has trained some places, some people within different retreats, Living Springs and Eden Valley. Living Springs is in Alabama, and Eden Valley is in Colorado. And so you can access that as well. If you want to watch any of these services again, livestream.com. We have our own one. It's southamptonstachurch.org. Once you get there, you'll see a platform. It'll say Live and Archive. You click Archive, you can see all the presentations from this week. If you go on YouTube, you can type in our YouTube channel, Southampton SDA Church, and find the same presentations. And lastly, Barbara just gave us her own website. So you can actually go to her website to find even more information. That's at barbhealth.com, as seen on the screen. If you cannot see it, at the end of the service, we bring it up, and you can just take pictures of it at the very end as well. Before we begin, just in case you got one of these, there's a prayer card. As much as we want you to be physically healthy, we also want you to be spiritually healthy, right? So if you fill this out at the end, as you turn it in to Brother Smith, or even in the orphan plate, that would be sufficient. All right, so we're just going to also remind you, just in case you've forgotten, tomorrow will be 2 services in the morning, and that will be the last ones. The first one at 9:30. The second one will begin at 11 and be finished before around 1 o'clock. All right, so those are the last 2 ones. They'll be dealing with the brain. Barbara will get back more information as she begins. So if you could just bow your heads in prayer, and then we'll get straight to the service. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for your many blessings you've given us. Praise the Lord that you allowed for Sister Barbara O'Neill to share the wealth of knowledge that you have bestowed upon her. We pray, Lord, that we will not just take this and just let it go away, but that we'll utilize it to help our bodies to be the optimal performance that you have them to be, what you designed for us, your amazing creations. You've made us amazing machinery, and we pray that we'll learn how to heal it by design. So we thank you once again. Please bless us this evening. In Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Again, we come together to study this amazing body that God has given us. And God designs that we be in health. And I think we all would like that too, is that right? In fact, there's a lovely paragraph that I'd like to begin with tonight. It's from a little book called Counsel on Diet and Food. And it's in about page 30. And it says, right physical habits promote mental superiority. Intellectual power, physical strength, longevity depends upon immutable laws. There's no happen so, no chance about this matter. Nature's God will not interfere to preserve men from the consequences of violating nature's law. So this is the law of cause and effect. And we see it in Galatians 6 verse 7, where the Bible says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is a problem that I find universal. And it is a result of this cause and effect. But one of the scary things about it is many people don't realise why the result is happening, especially when women are told that the contraceptive pill is perfectly safe. But one writer in Australia stated that she believes that it's responsible for the mass murder of millions of women. Well, that's scary stuff, isn't it? And as you will find tonight, that men and women have, are, and will continue to pay a very high price for the pill was introduced for sexual freedom. And in fact, the 1960s was called the sexual revolution, yeah? Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. But a very high price is being paid for that because it has caused a massive disruption of the hormones in the body. Those little chemical messengers called hormones. And sometimes the disruption of these hormones is the missing link in why people aren't well. Especially in areas like breast cancer, endometriosis, cervical cancer, cysts on the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids in the uterus, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer. Do you know that they are all a result of a hormonal imbalance? And one of the main causes of this hormonal imbalance is this contraceptive pill. Now, a couple of years ago, Time magazine did about a 6-page article hailing it as a deliverer of women, giving women freedom. There was not one indication in the whole article that it's caused any problems. And I thought, well, who wrote this? Huh? It was not an independent study, that one. So what I'd like to begin with tonight, I'd like to begin with by listing some of the symptoms of a woman having a hormonal imbalance, and then I'd like to list some of the symptoms of a male having a hormonal imbalance. I've already touched on some of the symptoms of a female. Let me go through them again. When a girl gets her periods at a very young age, do you know what normal is? Normal is 16 to 18. And yet you never hear of such a thing hardly now. We're getting young girls who are developing breasts at the age of 8, and they're beginning menstruating at the age of 9. Do you know, this is when they should be still little girls. That is an indication of a hormonal imbalance. Usually come through from the mother. And we're going to have a look at how it comes through the mother. And sometimes it's come from her mother. But there's always a reason, because as I showed you on Monday night, it's our lifestyle habits that are affecting the DNA we're giving to our children. Another symptom of a female having a hormonal imbalance is very heavy periods, very painful periods. Also, premenstrual tension. How many women and men think that one's normal? I've got some good news tonight. It's not. One man said to me, my wife, he said, for 3 weeks a month, it's pleasant to be with her, but for 1 week a month, he said, it's just terrible. He said, I come home from work, nothing's done. Breakfast dishes are still on the table. She's still in her pajamas. No washing's done. The house looks like a bomb hit it. And if I say anything, she just loses it. And then once that week's gone, everything changes. He said, for 3 weeks, I try and prepare her for that week. And by the way, how does that lady feel about that week? She's got a hormonal imbalance. That's why I say I've got some good news tonight. It can be remedied, and I'm going to show you how. Another symptom of a hormonal imbalance in a woman is breast cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, endometriosis, fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, heart disease, depression. These are some of the symptoms of a woman having a hormonal imbalance. Well, what about a male? What are the symptoms with a male? Low sperm count, penile dysfunction, inability to hold an erection, called PD. In Australia, they have clinics for this. You know, the current figures in Australia are 40% of men over the age of 40. are having trouble with this. The male nurse that I know who's in charge of 35 clinics where this runs, he said, we had a 21-year-old man come wanting help for his wedding night. Bit scary, hey? Another symptom of a hormonal imbalance in a male is prostate problems. We didn't know what the word prostate meant 20 years ago. Also, too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate, and too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. So these are some of the symptoms of a hormonal imbalance. What I'd like to do in the first part of the lecture is I'd like to show you how the monthly cycle should run. Then I'm going to show you what throws it out, and then I'm going to show you how you can bring back the balance. Our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. I mentioned this last night. I mentioned this last night when I, hopefully, without any measure of doubt, proved to you that it's a total hoax that cholesterol causes heart disease. And when people are getting their cholesterol levels dangerously low, what's dangerously low? 150? 100? Because you see, our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. And if you don't have enough cholesterol, that person's going to have hormonal problems. From cholesterol, the body makes Pregnenolone. And from Pregnenolone, the body makes another hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is a key hormone because from progesterone, your estrogen levels are made. And from progesterone, testosterone levels are made. And from progesterone, your adrenal hormones are made. Now there's your fight and your flight hormones. So you can see that progesterone is a pretty important hormone. Let's have a look at the monthly cycle. It's a 28-day cycle. Now let me introduce you to the star players in this dance of the hormone. One player is progesterone, and progesterone's going to be wearing a green dress, and progesterone's role in the body is that of happy hormone. What's the old saying? Happy wife, happy life, is that right? Do you know there are many sad homes because the woman has a hormonal imbalance, as you will see. The other player in the dance of the hormones is estrogen. And estrogen's going to be wearing a red dress. And estrogen's role in the body is that of a cell proliferator. Cell proliferator means causes massive cell growth. And it is estrogen that causes the skinny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if estrogen levels remain high, the beautiful, shapely woman can get out of shape. I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. As you will see, and there are a couple of proverbs that talk about that, isn't there? When the slave becomes the master. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, progesterone levels are low. Day 1 of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. Day 1 of the monthly cycle, estrogen levels are low. But by day 7, estrogen levels are rising until we get up until day 13. Estrogen is the star player in the dance of the hormones. Let's go to the stage where the dance is played out. And this is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. This is the uterus, this is the cervix, this is the birth canal, and these are the fallopian tubes with the little filaments on the end of the fallopian tube, and these are the ovaries that are connected by a ligament. So at this time of the month, estrogen is causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus, once again causing the blood nest to develop. I used to say to my little children, when they were young, I'd say, Mother has a blood nest in her. And if Father puts a seed in there, a baby can grow. But if Father doesn't put the seed there, the blood nest comes away. Do you know it's a good way to start? You just tell them simply like that. And as they grow and as their interest is more, you can tell them more. Estrogen is also causing massive cell growth in the ovaries, causing eggs to develop. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. By day 14, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries. And the little filaments on the end of the fallopian tubes basically pull that egg up, and that egg starts to travel up the fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes are ever going like this, causing that egg to move up, up, up. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister. And that blister is called the corpus luteum. I've drawn it in green because corpus luteum is the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Can you see the importance of a woman ovulating every month? Because when she ovulates every month, corpus luteum's made. And when corpus luteum is developed every month, then progesterone levels are maintained. There's your happy hormone. There's keeping all of these other ones under control. And so, with the development of corpus luteum, now progesterone levels rise. So by day 14, progesterone levels are starting to rise. Now, because we've got our egg, we've got our nest, we've got our lubricant, the message is now given to estrogen that estrogen can go now backstage. Now, with the rise in progesterone, what effect is that having? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus, putting the finishing touches. I liken progesterone to the plasterers and the painters. Progesterone also heightens a woman's mood at this time of the month to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect. So let me show you. I'm going to magnify the cervix. The cervix usually has two lips with a mucus plug. Under the effect of progesterone, the mucus plug goes, the lips come up a little tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix, and that lubricant is designed specifically to facilitate the entry of sperm up into the uterus. So you can see the stages set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 200 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? That's incredible. You see, the sperm is the smallest cell in the human body. And as I explain what happens next, you'll see why God made so many. You see, they've got a long journey and they've got a lot of hardship. And you know, what did we come from? One. Incredible. Up to half come back out. If the sperm meet this cervix, very difficult to gain entry. But if the sperm meet this cervix, that lubricant literally grabs that sperm and shoots it up. It's got a long journey, and some of them go down the wrong road. There's no road map. They basically die and get absorbed back into the blood. But some happen to go down the right road, and aha, they found their prize. I saw a photograph one day of 15 sperm all trying to gain entry. Do you know, as soon as the tip of the head of one sperm gets in, immediately a toxic substance is released to kill all the rest, and all the little openings shut immediately. Isn't that incredible? Now, occasionally two might get in, and the only way that can happen is at the split second they both gain entry. And that's when the twins can share the placenta. Did you know that within, I think it's a few days, and in a few days, the DNA of the egg and the sperm are unravelling and starting to join together. So within a few days, there's a division to the first two cells. And when the division of the first two cells happen, the DNA of a new human being is perfectly intact. With this knowledge, when does life begin? Within days. Within days. I think there might be a few surprises on the resurrection morning. What do you think? Just incredible. And isn't it a miracle that you or I are here? When you consider everything that has to be in place for the conception of a new human being, it is a miracle. So never for a moment do not ever think that you are not precious. Precious and designed by God, each one of us. So what happens when conception takes place? When conception takes place, progesterone levels soar 200%. What do we often say when a lady's pregnant? Oh, she's just blossoming. Progesterone levels are high. I was pregnant or breastfeeding non-stop for 14 years. I'm still alive. Must be all that progesterone. People used to say to me, oh, you poor thing. I say, oh, no, it was good. Mind you, I love babies. Now, see how there is one progesterone? There are 3 estrogens. So you've got estrone. An estrone is E1. You've got estradiol. And estradiol is given the name E2. And estriol is the delicate estrogen. And estriol is called E3. Now, estrone and estradiol both have strong cell proliferator action, whereas estriol is the delicate estrogen, and it is in pregnancy that estriol levels rise. So what happens if the woman does not fall pregnant? Then by day 26, her progesterone levels are dropping. By day 26, her estrogen levels are dropping. And when both those levels drop, the blood supply to the uterus is cut. And when the blood supply to the uterus is cut, then the blood nest comes away, and we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what it should look like. But it has been said that only the anatomy and physiology books looks like that now. Now, before I begin to show you what causes the imbalance, I want to spend a few moments on sperm. Sperm is an alien to woman's body. And when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So when a woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back her immune system and sperm gets through. Otherwise, none of us would be here. But in this remarkable body that we live in, every time a woman's husband enters her, her immune system rises and says, oh, it's husband, I'll just stand back. Familiarity happens. But can you imagine how dangerous it could be in a woman who has multiple partners? Can you imagine how dangerous it is in the area of anal sex? And you will find that many homosexuals' diseases can be related to their sexual experiences. Remember what sperm is, an immune suppressant. What about if a woman has a pap smear? If a woman has a pap smear, it is a little scrape or nick taken out of the cervix to test for abnormal cells. Let's say a woman has a pap smear. That night she is intimate with her husband. When his sperm enters, her immune system has to stand back. It cannot work in the presence of sperm. And if it happens just before she goes to sleep, can you see the immune system can't get back on the job till morning when gravity causes sperm to come away? Let's say she's a very sexually active woman and this is happening 2 nights out of 3. 6 months later she has another pap smear. They happen to take a scrape on the same spot. What's the results? Abnormal cells. What caused the abnormal cells? The first pap smear that was never allowed to heal. A woman should be told that for 4 weeks after a pap smear not to allow her husband's sperm to enter her. Are they told that? One lady said, my husband can't wait 4 weeks. I said, well, he has to wear a condom. But the sperm must not enter. Would it take 4 weeks to heal? Not in a healthy woman, but there are some women that don't exercise, go to bed too late, eat too much sugar, drink too much coffee. It would take 4 weeks in that woman. In a healthy woman, it would take about 10 days. No wonder on page 127 of one of my favourite books, The Ministry of Healing, the writer states, the only hope of better things is the education of people in right principles. So, what causes the imbalance? 1957, the first contraceptive pill was introduced to women. 1960s is called the sexual revolution. Women wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. But men and women are paying a very high price. Let me show you why. So number one disruptor is the contraceptive pill. What is the pill? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. That Mexican wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And diosgenin, in a laboratory, it can be converted to progesterone. Called progesterone because it has the identical molecular structure that our progesterone has, but the pharmaceutical can't patent that. So they add a couple more atoms in one area and come up with a synthetic estrogen. They add a few more atoms in another area and come up with a synthetic progesterone. It's called progestin or progestone. You see, in the 1980s, it was proven that straight estrogen causes cancer. And so from about the 80s, then the pill included not just estrogen but progesterone, but it wasn't progesterone, it was progestin or progestone. Did that help? Not really, because now that blocks our own progesterone receptor sites. You see, when these synthetic hormones are fed into this biochemical pathway that our body uses to make its own hormones, it causes a disruption. And the body says, what's happening? Must be pregnant. Because it thinks it's pregnant, the egg's not released. So the woman doesn't fall pregnant because there's no egg release. Can you see that? So for 3 weeks she makes a pill, takes the pill. The body thinks it's pregnant. Then she takes a sugar pill for 1 week, and the body goes, what's going on now? And it has a token bleed. And then a week later, the hormones come back. Oh, must be. Can you see the disruption there? But I want to show you what's happening. So our green is progesterone. Its number one hormone should be, because it balances. It's the precursors of the others. Estrogen should be here. Month after month on the pill. No corpus luteum. What's happening to progesterone? It's going down. Month after month on the pill with its synthetic estrogen, where's estrogen going? Up. We've got a problem today, sadly too common, called estrogen dominance, progesterone deficiency. Good slave, bad master is now the master. Let's look at the scale now. Where's estrogen? Estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing massive cell growth on the ovaries. There's your cysts. In the uterus, there's your fibroids. Increasing the lining, that's your endometriosis. Endometriosis starts wandering all through the abdominal wall. One 25-year-old lady said to me she went to the doctor with endometriosis and he said, you'll be all right when you go through menopause. She's 25. What's that? Another 20 years of suffering? But what has he just admitted? You see, in menopause, if the balance is right, in menopause, both hormones drop. But if the balance is not right and the lady goes through menopause, yes, they drop, but what's still happening? You've still got that imbalance. So estrogen, with its cell proliferator action, causing all these growths in the reproductive organs, in the breast, to even breast cancer, cervical cancer. The lady cannot lose weight because estrogen is causing cell proliferator action in the torso area. And because it's a capillary dilator, it causes all the blood to rush to the skin. And the husband knows because all the blankets get thrown off in the middle of the night. He might even get pushed right out of bed. 10 minutes later, the blankets go back on. One lady said to me, I'm the CEO of a large company. I'm taking a board meeting and all of a sudden a hot flush comes. She said, I'm dripping perspiration. She said, I can't handle it. So she went to the doctor. What did he give her? He gave her hormone replacement therapy. The flushes stop. Why? Oh, the body thinks it's pregnant again. More synthetic hormones. So all the energies go into the breast and the uterine area. 6 years later, she's got breast cancer. Doctor takes her off HRT immediately. Why? He knows. So you say to the physician, why did you give it to her? He said she was suffering and it brought her relief. That is true. The flushes stopped. But you asked the lady, what would you prefer? Hot flushes or breast cancer? What's the answer? Bring on the flushes, even in Bermuda. I'll get a fan, yeah? He said, and he also will say, and not every woman gets breast cancer. And that is true. But it's like playing Russian roulette. I'm not interested in doing that with my health. So estrogen with its cell proliferator action, by the way, where's progesterone? Down here. And how does the woman feel the week before her periods? I said to one lady, do you get premenstrual tension? She said, oh, I just hate my husband for a week every month. She's got it. Down there. And she can even be diagnosed with depression when what can be the problem all along? It's just that it's imbalance. She has no desire for sex. And when she has sex, it's very painful because the cells that line the birth canal are getting very fragile. There is no lubricant, and she is, of all women, most miserable. And she knows that her husband's secretary looks better than she does. So she goes to the doctor and he puts her on HRT. Does that fix everything? No. Does nothing for her desire for sex. No, it does nothing for her comfort with sex. All it does is stop the flushes. That's it. Does nothing for her weight gain. Does nothing for her mood. So he might have another pill for the mood called antidepressants. But there are many women who haven't been on the pill or HRT. One lady said, no, Barbara, that was 30 years ago. I said, that's right. It was 30 years ago. It's thrown out and it's still out. But some have never been on it. What causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? Growth stimulants. It's against the law to give them growth stimulants in Australia. So you know what they've done now? Genetically modified the chicken to produce more estrogen. So whether the person eats the chicken or the egg, and whether the chicken has been given the growth stimulants or genetically modified, what's going to happen when the human being eats that chicken and that egg? When I was a little girl, we had chicken once a year, Christmas Day. And when I was 16, Kentucky Fried Chicken came to town. We drove all the way to Liverpool to have a look. And isn't that when people started eating chicken? Because traditionally Aussies, I'm a 5th generation Australian Scottish descent, brought up in the Presbyterian church, you know, every Christmas, that's the only time we ate chicken. But when these American companies came over with their Henny Pennies and their Kentucky Frieds, Aussies started to eat chicken. Aussies seem to think that the white meats are better than the red. Are Bermudans like that? Actually, today, the whites are almost worse. They're almost worse than the red. So let's have a look at fish. Well, when you've got 80% of women on the pill or HRT, and they're going to the bathroom and the sewage goes out to sea, and the fish are feeding on the sewage. What about the farmed fish? What about them? What do you think the farmer wants to do to get them to grow quick? See, it's very difficult. Mind you, your seas look pretty pure out there, but I'm sure the sewage goes somewhere. What about red meat? Well, do you know in Australia, it's against the law to give cattle growth stimulants. But one cattle farmer's wife, she said, the pharmaceutical companies knock on our door every month pushing the growth stimulants. And they say, look, used to be 5 months before market, it's only 5 days now. It's not picked up in the blood test, but where is it still? It's in the fish. So if it's in the meat, it's in the product. A lot of guests that come to our health retreat are meat eaters, and they're looking a little worried right now. And I say, we're going to show you how to make lentils taste pretty good. And we do. But I've met people who are vegetarian, never been on the pill. There's more. Plastics. Plastics? You see, estrogen contains a phenyl ring, and that phenyl ring unlocks the door to let it into the estrogen receptor site. And a lot of plastics today contain the phenyl. So, nonylphenol is the chemical that's put into plastic to make the plastic soft. You know how you can squeeze your plastic bottles? You can get plastic bottles that are hard. I don't know if you've seen me carrying my little water bottle around, but it's a hard plastic. And they are often called BPA free. See, bisphenol A. That's BPA. But can you see that's often lining tins? So they both have the key that unlocks the door to get into the estrogen receptor site in the cell. So people are getting hormonal imbalances because of their exposure to plastic. Now, if I'm thirsty, I'll go into a shop and buy a bottle of water and drink it. It's not the odd day you drink out of a bottle of water. But ideally, you get a glass or a stainless steel or the hard plastic bottles, and most of the time you should be drinking out of that. Be careful on the kids. You know, we think we've got problems now. You wait another 10 years. Children, little babies, what are they sucking on? Plastic rattles. No, I used to give mine wooden spoons or those little wooden pegs. Or I'd go and get a stick out of the bush and give them a stick to chew on. I remember one day someone said, Barbara, your baby's got something in its mouth. I said, yeah, it's all right, it's a dandelion flower. I gave it to them. It's better than a lolly. We call it a candy. Oh, they'd suck on that dandelion flower. You know, get your toys out of the bush, the good things. If it's from a park where you think dogs are, go home and boil it up a bit. But I have to tell you that it'd probably even be better than plastics. Also, be careful what the babies are wearing. Now, when I had babies, do you call them diapers? We call them nappies. You know, you wash the nappies. Babies are in plastic nappies. And also, how many babies are having altered cow's milk warmed up in a plastic bottle in a microwave? So be very careful. I don't know if you can get them in Bermuda, but in Australia, you can get a nappy. The brand is called Natty, and it's the nappies or diapers are made out of cornstarch. So I don't know if you can get that in Bermuda, or just go for your natural ones, your washable ones. I'm sure in this weather they'd dry in half a day, is that right? So this is why plastics are contributing to the hormonal imbalance. And one of the worst is heating. So hot soup in a plastic takeaway container. So when those plastics are heated, they give off these estrogen mimickers. So they're called xenoestrogens, meaning that they mimic estrogen. And you'll also find estrogen mimickers coming off chemicals. You'll find estrogen mimickers coming off herbicides, insecticides, pesticides. That's why go organic as much as possible. Grow your own as much as possible. There's another one. There's a mold waste called zearalenone. And on Monday night, we looked at molds and mold wastes. And there are millions of different molds, and so millions upon millions of different mold wastes. Now, zearalenone is unique in that it has an estrogen effect. Let me give you a story of something that happened in the 80s in Puerto Rico. They had an epidemic of children going through puberty at 5 to 6 years of age. So they began to investigate, and they found that cows were being given an anabolic steroid to help them grow quickly called Zearalol. And it was made from zearalenone, the mold waste, because they grew quickly. And the women would eat the meat in pregnancy, and that would affect the development of their children. And they thought because it wasn't a chemical, it was sort of a mold waste, it wasn't that bad, so they were giving it to the cows days before they were taken to market to be slaughtered. Now in Australia, all grain is tested to see if it has any zearalenone in it, because grains grow it very easily. But if they were to stop any grain that had a trace of zearalenone, no grain would get through. So they've actually got what they consider a safe level of zearalenone, and if it's over that, the grain's destroyed. Do you know they find grain that's over the level because it's had contact with mould, and in silos it's very easy. Do you know no one will eat, the cows won't eat it? Do you know not even pigs will eat mouldy grain? Isn't that incredible? They've even covered it with molasses and they still won't eat it. Do they know something we don't? So all of these things can contribute to the imbalance of the hormones. And when we looked at this last night, when you've got a nation, and I know in Australia and America, and I think Bermuda's not much difference, that are eating cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea, their diet's almost 100% wheat. And vegetarians are the most susceptible, because how many vegetarians have pasta and bread when they stop the meat? So how can we turn this around? Before I show you how we can turn it around, I want to show you 3 different types of estrogens. So we're going to look at the cell. So this is a cell, cell, cell. This is an estrogen receptor site. Now this estrogen is the xenoestrogen. And xenoestrogen, coming from chemicals, plastics, herbicides, insecticides, it's 20,000 times stronger than plant. Sorry, not plant, human. So how big's human estrogen? It just sits perfectly in. Well, how big's xenoestrogen? It's huge. Where does zearalenone fit in? Zearalenone is about in the middle. So the Z zearalenone, it's about 1,000 times stronger than human, whereas xeno is 20,000 times stronger. But human estrogen is 20,000 times stronger than plant. So how big's plant? It's a tiny little slip of a thing that just sits in like that. So where do we get our plant estrogens? Red clover's high in plant estrogens, soy. Which is the one we most need to fear, students? Is it the plant? No. It's the xeno. And you'll see newspaper articles or magazine articles that say if you've got breast cancer or prostate cancer, don't eat soy. Have you read that? Well, there is one soy that you shouldn't touch, and that's the one that's been genetically modified. In America, it's called Roundup Ready. Why is it called Roundup Ready? Because it has been genetically modified to resist Roundup. And a farmer told me this. He said 5 times before harvest, the field is sprayed. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doses of Roundup. And how does Roundup kill the plant? By interfering with its hormones. He said all the weeds die and the soybean keeps growing. Bit scary, isn't it? So that soybean's dangerous, number 1, because it's been genetically modified. Number 2, why? Because it's full of the xenoestrogens. That soybean will increase breast cancer. That soybean will increase prostate cancer. But a soybean that has not been genetically modified and it has been grown without herbicides and insecticides, and it contains these, that is a good soybean. You see, soybeans contain the most anti-cancer properties of any plant. I think I mentioned earlier, I've got a friend who did a thesis on soybean, and so people say to her, tell us about soybean. She said, it's real easy. God made it good, man mucked it up. End of story. In fact, one of the questions I noted said, soybeans toxic? Yes, this one is. That's right. But not the one God made. Now remember Psalm 104 verse 14, where the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man? Let me show you what this means with the soybean. The soybean comes into the receptor site and it knocks. Excuse me, can I come in? Cell says, no, we've got enough estrogen. So soybean says, I'll just sit at the door. And you know what that does? That protects that receptor site from this guy. Because remember this one, this xenoestrogen's got the key. He just says, get out of my way, I got the key, I'm just coming in, whether you need it or not. But if soybean knocks at the door and says, excuse me, can I come in? And the cell says, oh, please do, we're a little low. Can you see what herbs do? They work with the needs of your body. That's why if you've got a bone spur and you put a castor oil compress on it, it'll break down the bone spur, but it won't break up your bones. Maybe when we're in heaven for 1,000 years, we might ask God the science behind that one. It works with the body. Science calls it synergism. Synergistic, working with the body. That's the beauty of herbs. So that is the soybean story. And that is what most people don't understand. So you read articles that say, if you've got prostate cancer, breast cancer, don't eat soy. Will you ever read an article that says, if you've got prostate or breast cancer, don't use chemicals, don't use plastics? Will you read that? No. And you've probably discovered you can't believe everything you read, is that right? And that's why I like to lecture from a common sense point of view. It's got to make sense, doesn't it? That's how God made our brain. So now the million-dollar question is, how do we turn this around? We've had a look at what the imbalance is. We've had a look at what causes. How do we turn it around? If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Eliminate. By the way, those xenoestrogens, they have the same strong cell proliferator action as the estrone and estradiol. Very strong cell proliferator action. So eliminate. Turn the tap off. Stop the pill. Well, how are we going to stop having babies popping up everywhere? Sex is 2-part. Contraception should be 2-part. Any amens out there? The woman's role is to know when she is ovulating, and her body will give her 3 signs. One sign is that her temperature changes. Her temperature will change every day. Now, what a woman should do is she should take her temperature before she gets out of bed in the morning and chart it. And she will find that her temperature will do this, then it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. So she charts it every day, and when she sees that drop and go up to a higher plane, she has begun to ovulate. And most women will ovulate around day 14. The second sign is that her vaginal mucus will change. When estrogen is high, it's not as profuse and it's more white. When progesterone is high, it's a lot more profuse, a lot thinner and clear. Now, what a woman does is she just tests it every day and charts it. At first, she's got nothing to compare it to, but she just tests it every day, and as the weeks and months go by, she starts to see the changes, and she starts to see where it all comes together. Her third sign is to check her cervix. So she'll check her cervix every day and note. Again, at first she's got nothing to compare it with, but as she checks her cervix every day, as the weeks and months go by, she sees the changes. These 3 signs will come together to confirm to her that she's ovulating. And most women will ovulate this week here. Now, those signs will let her define it. So she can say to her husband, this week here, she says, I'm safe. Here she says, I am not safe. Here she says, I am safe. So when she's not safe, he either uses a condom or he masters the art of withdrawal. Apparently the Italian men prided themselves on not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. You see, when the contraceptive pill came in, men didn't even have to think about it. But it should be a little bit of both, yeah? Now, my daughter Jessica and her husband Matthew, they were married for 3 years before little Amethyst came. Isn't that nice? That a young couple can have a few years together before the little darlings appear. My daughter Jessica says it like this, because her and her husband were virgins on their wedding night. How nice. Isn't that God's plan? She said, and this is in her words, she's my romantic daughter. She said, when a girl is born, she's born with a treasure. And she is to be taught to sacredly guard her treasure. And she's to keep that treasure sacred and present it to her king on their wedding night, when he has just promised to lay down his life for her, yeah? One young girl said to me one day, she was 14, she was 15. She said, I've got a question for you. And she seemed very embarrassed, and we had to go into another room. She said, I've got another question. I said, what is it? She said, what's sex like? I thought, oh, dear. I said, well, it's like this, my dear. I said, it can be rushed with a boy you like in the back of the car, and it can be one of the worst experiences of your life. Or you can sacredly guard your treasure till your wedding night, and it can be the most beautiful experience of your life. You choose. Oh, if only every young girl was taught that, yeah? Then there would be no need for the pill, which is causing so many problems, so many. I told you what's happening to women. What about the daughters of the women that were on the pill? Do you know these are the young women with endometriosis? These are the young women with fibroids in their uterus. These are the young women that are dying of breast cancer in their 30s. These are the young men who are having trouble with being feminine. These are the young men who have low sperm count, having trouble with penile dysfunction. Can you see how it's coming through the genes? But why is it in the genes? Because of the woman that was on the pill. And it doesn't, no one tells you this, do they? My daughter Jessica, when her friends asked her why she's not on the pill, she said, well, it's like this, buy now, pay later. Isn't that what's happening? And it's even pay later in the next generation. So stop the pill, Stop HRT. The list that I give you here allows a woman not to have to take the HRT. Stop the meat and its products. If I have guests who like meat and want to eat it, I say it must be organic. It's too dangerous today. One lady said, well, I can't afford that. I said, well, lentils are cheap. We'll just show you how to make them taste nice. Plastics. I think it's impossible to eliminate plastic. It's handy stuff. But just reduce your exposure as much as possible. Let me tell you the 3 plastic fabrics. Nylon, polyester and acrylic. Nylon, polyester and acrylic are plastic fabrics. Now ladies, have a look at the label on your bra. What are bras made out of mostly? Either nylon or polyester or acrylic. And that's a big contributing factor to breast cancer. And one very big contributing factor is underwire bras. You see, breast tissue is predominantly lymphatic tissue, and it's supposed to empty because your lymphatic system is your body's vacuum cleaner. It sweeps away waste from the tissues and dumps it in the nodes under your arm. But there's this big wire there that stops the cleaning and dumping under your arm. If you're feeling quite sad right now because you just spent a lot of money on an underwire bra, get a little razor blade and just take that wire out. And what a woman should do in the shower every night is just massage up into her armpits. But ideally, ladies, strengthen your pectoral muscles. Now, if I asked my sons, who are very proud of their muscles, to wear a bra for a month, they'd never forgive me, would they? What would happen to their pectoral muscles? They would lose all tone. So women, it's important to do push-ups, very important to do push-ups, very important to wear bras that are less restrictive. I do understand when a woman is very heavily endowed, she needs to support herself a little, because if she exercises and her breasts are bouncing, the tissues can tear. But she still needs to build up those pectoral muscles. It's a good idea, ladies, to go into a shop and spend a bit of time trying on and make sure there's no restriction there. If you take your clothes off at night and you see red lines, what are those red lines just done? They've blocked your circulatory system and they've blocked your lymphatic system. So we're getting down to chemicals. Eliminate chemicals as much as possible. The best cleaning products are white vinegar and sodium bicarbonate. And elbow grease, yes. And zearalenone. I'm sure everyone's got the message so far. Take up the challenge. Stop the wheat for 2 months. Just see what happens. Won't hurt you. In fact, you might greatly benefit from it. Number 2, your liver has the ability to detoxify you from excess estrogens. And it'll take the estrogen down one of 2 pathways. It'll take the estrogen down the hydroxy-2 pathway, and if it does that, the estrogen's out. If it takes the estrogen down the hydroxy-16 pathway, then it comes back in 100 times worse. So we'll call it highway 2 and highway 16. We don't want highway 16, we want highway 2. So I'm going to give you a list of certain herbs and foods that stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16. Cabbage. The cabbage family. The cabbage family contain indoles, and indoles are a plant chemical that stimulates highway 2, getting the estrogen out, and inhibits highway 16. So it can be simple as eating something from the cabbage family every day. Just a comment on cabbage. And to comment on cabbage, I'm going to touch on thyroid. High estrogen opposes thyroid function. So many people, especially women who are developing thyroid problems in their 50s, 60s, it's because of high estrogen. From the pill they're on in their 20s, exposure to plastics, etc., etc. So if someone has a thyroid problem, it's very important that they adhere to what I'm listing here to get that back. Now, if someone's got underactive thyroid, they need to only eat the cooked cabbage family because raw cabbage contains goitrogens. And goitrogens inhibit thyroid function. But when you cook the cabbage family, it inactivates the goitrogens. But if someone's got a hyperactive thyroid, they should eat lots of raw cabbage, raw broccoli, because can you see, you want to slow the thyroid down. What can also stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16 is vitamin B6, vitamin B9, and vitamin B12. If someone has a hormonal imbalance, they initially may need to take a supplement. But the best source of your B vitamins is found in your raw nuts and seeds. Also, licorice. If you've got high blood pressure, forget this one. I'm talking about the herb licorice. And flaxseed. It's a good idea to grind those up and have them every day on your breakfast. So number 1 is turning the tap off. Number 2 is stimulating the liver to get rid of the excess estrogen. And number 3 is a cream that's made in Australia called the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. The Anna's Wild Yam Cream contains the plant chemical diosgenin. And when the Anna's Wild Yam Cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take up the diosgenin, and that stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. In America, you can buy progesterone cream off the shelf, but you keep putting progesterone in the body gets lazy. The beauty of the Anna's Wild Yam Cream is that it stimulates the body to make its own progesterone. That's its superior. It is superior with that. At the beginning of our presentation tonight and at the end, there's a website up there, or sorry, not a website, an email from my daughter Emma. She lives in America and she sells the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. Also, Living Springs Retreat in Alabama sells it, and also Eden Valley sell it. Every year when I go to America, I meet women who've been on the progesterone cream. It's not doing it. They go on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream and they're getting results. Can you see its superiority? Because it stimulates your body to make its own. So how would a woman apply it? She applies 1 finger dip. That's just past the nail bed. So she puts her finger in, that's about the right amount. She puts it on the inside of her arms 1 time, inside her thighs another time, abdomen another time, chest another time. She alternates the spots and it keeps the body reactive. I met a 9-year-old girl when I was in the Bronx who already had her periods, so I advised she go on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. And I met a 90-year-old lady who was on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream for osteoporosis. You see, progesterone boosts bone-building cells. So people who have osteoporosis, it can be a hormonal imbalance. The worst thing you can do for your bones is take calcium. Now I'm going to tell you why. You see, your bones aren't made of calcium. They're made of 12 minerals and 64 trace minerals. What are the minerals? So let me give you the minerals that your bones are made of. Your bones are made of boron and calcium and chromium and iron and magnesium and manganese and selenium and sulfur and silica and potassium and phosphorus and zinc. That's what your bones are made of. And 64 trace. So it's not rocket science to determine what do your bones need? Bones harden cement, they don't harden bones. In fact, calcium supplements come into the body in an imbalanced form and can even weaken your bones. So where are we going to get that from? In fact, no matter where I stand in Bermuda, I'm pointing to it, am I right? Seawater. Yep. That's the cheapest and the easiest way, isn't it? And I've got some good news, you don't have to drink seawater. Just take a little mouthful before each glass of water and cook with it. 1 teaspoon of salt equals 1 cup of seawater. When you're making soup, stews, unleavened breads, cornbreads, put the seawater in. It's delicious. You're getting all your minerals. There's another place you'll get these minerals, and that is dark green leafy vegetables. Where did the elephant get his minerals from? Greens, dark green. The biggest boned creatures on this planet get their calcium from grass. Got some good news, you don't have to eat grass. You can eat kale, rocket, parsley. Try and have something green every day. That's what'll build your bones. And you need gravity-defying exercise. What's the best gravity-defying exercise? Rebounding. That'll strengthen your bones. So you need to strengthen it by defying gravity. Do you know, NASA found that when their astronauts came back from out of space, their bones and muscles had deteriorated because what's in space? No gravity. And the only exercise that prepared those astronauts for no gravity was rebounding. And they also found when they came back from outer space, it was the only exercise that got their bones and their muscles strong again quickly. And it also increased their G-force to leave the planet. It's important to start going to training. Is that right? We're training for something more important than the Olympic Games, am I right? God is looking for a people. He's looking for workers. And they're just about all gone down. Is that right? The harvest is great, but the workers are through. We need to be physically and mentally fit. And tomorrow I'll show you how you can be mentally fit and your brain need never deteriorate. And a lot of it has to do with everything I've been talking about this week. So your Anna's Wild Yam Cream strengthens your bone. Your Anna's Wild Yam Cream also helps to balance your thyroid because the Anna's Wild Yam Cream boosts progesterone. I've seen people come off their antidepressants after being on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. So if you're between 9 and 90, that works. How long should a woman be on it for? At least a year, maybe more. One lady said, a year? I said, well, you've been out for 20 years. And the good news is it's not going to take 20 years to get you back. But it may take 1 or even 2. I've had a few men say, thank you for giving me my wife back. My head's not being bitten off every month anymore. One lady said to me, thank you for giving me my daughter back. When she turned 13, horns came out. She said, the horns have gone in. What about a man? Well, the Anna's Wild Yam Cream also sell his yam cream. And his yam cream has a few specifics for the men as well as the basics that Anna's Wild Yam Cream have in it. Now, there's one thing before I move on to the men that I didn't define. I defined applying it twice a day to different parts of the body for 3 weeks a month. So if a woman is still menstruating, she will apply it for these 3 weeks here. She basically just stops when she's menstruating. If a woman is not menstruating anymore, she chooses 1 week of the month where she stops. One lady said to me, I'm terrible for that 1 week. Do I have to stop? Not many women say this, but occasionally I said, well, just go on half dose for that week. About 1% of women will develop a rash. And if that happens, it's quite rare. I say stop for a month and then put it on the soles of your feet. And many women have told me that little by little their body gets used to it again. So what about a man? A man does not have a break because men are not cyclic like women are. In fact, in the book Hormone Heresy by Cheryl Selman, she explains men and women like this. She said, men are like the sun. They rise every day, conquer the day, down again at the end of the day. She said, women are like the moon. Sometimes they're full, sometimes they're half, sometimes they're only a slither. Women are cyclic, but should not be having the extremes that we are seeing today. No. So why would a man apply the yam cream? A man would apply the yam cream for low sperm count. One man said to me, this stuff just puts lead in his pencil. Another man took it because he was not happy with the fact that he was so feminine. And another, we've had a few men take it to help with prostate problems. One man came to us, he was 65, and he was taking a 3-monthly injection to balance his hormones. You see, high estrogen causes high testosterone, which converts into another type of testosterone that inflames the prostate. And so that high testosterone, when someone has prostate problems, they're wanting to get that down. He was having 3 monthly injections. He developed breasts. He was having hot flushes. Not happy. So he decided to stop taking the injection and go on his cream. He implemented something else, which I've touched on a few times this week, which is the 8 laws of health. He started to exercise. He started to limit his technology time. He started to go to bed a bit earlier. He stopped his daily coffee. He started to eliminate wheat and eat more legumes. And he applied the yam cream. His wife emailed me 10 months later. She said, his testosterone level are the best levels they've ever been. And he's not having hot flushes and the breasts have gone down. That was in 10 months. Just on the annas. What I love about it is it works with the needs of the body. So how long would a person be on it? Maybe 1 year, maybe 2. If after a year you stop and you think, I was better on it, go on it a little bit longer. So a person would be on it for osteoporosis. They would be on it to help conquer their depression. They would be on it for maybe heavy loss of blood every month. One lady said after 1 month on the cream, her blood loss halved. So can you see there's a variety of reasons that a person would be on it. So the postmenopausal women, with all of their symptoms that I described to you, what the Anna's Wild Yam Cream will do is it'll get estrogen down and progesterone up, which means now they can start to lose a little bit of weight. Will it help with their desire for sex? Yes, it will raise it somewhat. But there are 2 other problems I mentioned before that they're not going to be remedied that quickly with the Anna's Yam Cream, but there's something else that's becoming popular that is helping many women, and it's called Yoni Stones. So what are Yoni Stones? Now, Yoni Stones are made out of nephrite jade, and they were developed in the Chinese dynasty by I don't know if it was by the emperor, but it was certainly to get the concubines sexually toned for the emperor. So what are the nephrite jades stones? Well, I shall draw them for you. They're like an egg, and that's probably the biggest size, and this is the middle sized, and then you've got a smaller one here. So they're the Yoni stones. And what a woman will do is she will insert the Yoni stone until it touches her cervix. So it basically sits up like that in her birth canal, And there are 2 holes here that she can put some dental floss in it so that she can easily extract it. Now, what a woman will do is she'll wear it for 1 hour a day for the first week, 2 hours a day for the second week, 3 hours a day, week 3, 4 hours a day for week 4, and 5 hours a day on the 5th week. So she's up to 5 hours a day by the 5th week. She wears it 5 hours a day for about 6 months. By then, her pelvic floor is very, very strong. You see, just her pelvic floor holding that stone in there strengthens the muscles. She cannot even feel it there. It's like she was wearing a tampon, something like that. She cannot even feel it there, but her muscles are holding it there. And what she can do is she can strengthen her muscles against that, maybe every 15 minutes or half an hour. They're often called Kegels, those strengthening exercises. So let me tell you some of the results that women are telling me is happening. I've had several women tell me that sex is no longer painful. Because the pelvic floor is strong, it increases the blood to that area, and the increase of blood to the area nourishes the cells that line the birth canal, so they're no longer super sensitive. I've had several women testify to me that their lubricant has returned. So sex is no longer painful. I had one young woman tell me that she had twin girls. This is 6 years before. Both of them were 6 pounds. So there's a lot of pressure there. And ever after, for again the next 6 years, every time she coughed or laughed, she would lose a little urine. In other words, she was incontinent because that heavy weight had weakened the muscles. She heard about the Yoni Stones, so she began to wear the Yoni Stone. She said that after, I think she said it was only 3 months, she had total control again. Because what it had done, it had strengthened her pelvic floor muscles. And you see, they're all muscles in that whole area. My daughter Jessica, she had home births, and her midwife was 52, and her midwife said to her, "I've got something to tell you that happened to me, and it might help you one day." She said, "I had a prolapse, a vaginal prolapse." She was in her 50s. She went to the doctor, and he said, "We are going to have to do surgery to pull that up." But he said, "What we have to do in a woman your age, because your muscles are no longer strong, we sew mesh in, and the mesh will hold it up." Do you know there are 800 court cases pending in Australia at the moment because of what that mesh has done? Is it the mesh's fault? Is it the doctor's fault? He has to use mesh because he can't. The muscles are not strong. Muscle knows no age. So whether you are 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. So where does the fault lie? I believe the fault lies in education, in teaching people how to keep their bodies strong. So my daughter Jessica's midwife, she didn't want that operation. She didn't want that. So she Google searched, and she found Yoni Stones made out of nephrite jade. So she began to wear the Yoni Stone. After 3 months, she went back to the doctor. He examined her. He said, "What's happened to you? You don't need surgery." What had happened? You see, we're ever fighting gravity. Gravity's pulling us down. You would be shocked at the amount of women in their 50s and 60s who have prolapses. I had 2 ladies in one program, both in their 50s, both had uterine prolapses, both had the surgery with the mesh. Both times it didn't work, so then they ended up having, after living for months in terrible discomfort, then a total hysterectomy. Did God mean for us to have our body parts chopped out? No, you know what he meant for us to be? Have strong, physically strong muscles right up until the day we die. So if a woman is incontinent, the Yoni Stones will strengthen her pelvic floor and get them strong again. If she has prolapse, it will strengthen the pelvic floor to pull that all into place. If a woman has problem with comfort with sex. They can return that comfort by strengthening that pelvic floor. One lady said to me, another side effect is my lower back doesn't hurt anymore. You see, your pelvic floor muscles come from your coccyx, between your legs and up to your belly bone. It's like a girdle. And many have a weak pelvic girdle. And there is no need. I met a lady a few weeks ago now in her 70s. She said, Barbara, I ordered the Yoni Stones and even the largest one I cannot hold. That's no muscle at all. She said, what can I do? She said, they just fall out. I said, you can get on the rebounder. Because the rebounder, that will strengthen that pelvic floor, and hopefully after a couple of months on the rebounder, you may be able to hold that. Because muscle knows no age. Whether you are 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. How do muscles get strong? Use. Strength comes by exercise. There is no other way. So how can we strengthen our pelvic floor? We can buy a little stool to put in front of the throne so that every time we go to the bathroom, we are in the squatting position. We can rebound, and that strengthens the pelvic girdle. And we can do what my husband's not very happy about, but he's happy now every day. We squat. Now, not like that, okay? Back straight. He complained at first, but he's very proud of himself now because he can just do 10. Just do 10 every day. If you can't do it, put your back against a wall, and it's a lot easier with your back against the wall. If your knees won't let you do it, just do what your knees let you. And even just to go like that, even just to hold yourself at that, you'll strengthen those quad muscles. Do you know God gave us the biggest muscle mass in our quads? They're our thigh muscles. And he gave us the biggest bone in our thighs. Why did he do that? Because when we bend and we lift, what should we lift with? This. Now, if you bend like that and lift like that, all the weight goes there, which will weaken it. So the back must always be strong. Test your body how far down you can go without bending that back. All the weight will be taken here, and that's what God meant. How many people have weak thighs and weak lower backs? How many people have lower back problems? So how do they get weak? Again, a weak pelvic floor. So it's important to take steps to strengthen up your pelvic floor. God designed the body to heal itself. And can you see that this hormone is often the missing link? Osteoporosis. We need the bone-building cells. Thyroid. We need to bring that estrogen down to strengthen that thyroid. Depression. We need to boost the happy hormone. Can you see it's a missing link with many things? What if a person goes on the Anna's wild yam cream and they don't have a hormonal imbalance? Well, can you have too much happy hormone? No, you definitely cannot. There's definitely a toxic dose of estrogen, but there's no known toxic dose of progesterone. In fact, all of its properties give a boost. So how do the 8 laws of health affect the hormones? We need pure air, because remember, zearalenone is a mold waste, so that can be a link. So let's have a look at these laws. Number 1 is pure air. Number 2 is sunshine. Do you know that our eyes need sunshine? Because when our eyes get sunshine, the ultraviolet rays go through neurochemical pathways and hit the pituitary gland, which helps to balance the hormones. So if you have glasses, try and go outside every day without your glasses on. If you can't see a thing, hold on to a tree. And get as much of your clothes off as you can, as you dare, and get that sun on the body. Dark-skinned people need 10 times the sun that I need, and you can bear 10 times the sun that I can. If you're not used to sun, start slowly. And when people come to me with skin cancer on the bottom of their foot and in the inside of their leg, is that sun? No. In fact, you know what the doctors are finding today in the research? Vitamin D deficiency is a contributing factor to skin cancer. So sunshine's important with the hormones. Temperance, I mentioned the story about the man that balanced his hormones back and he stopped his coffee. He stopped his refined sugar. In the book Sugar Blues, William Dufty, he shows how sugar is disrupting hormones. What sugar does is it has a huge effect, and I looked at this the other night, was it Wednesday night when we looked at diabetes? You see, the pancreas is also part of the endocrine system, the whole of the glandular hormonal system. Number 4 is rest. The hours of power, what are they? 10 to 3 a.m. Important to be getting those hours, because when you get those hours, it encourages your hormones to balance back. Basically, when we're sleeping in those hours, we're on nature's operating table. And I would not like to be on an operating table awake, would you? So allow yourself to be put to sleep every night. Number 5 is exercise. We need to be doing it every single day. And remember I said that the breast tissue is lymphatic tissue? And when you're rebounding, your lymphatic system is activated. Your lymphatic system, remember what it's called? It's your vacuum cleaner. It sweeps away waste from the tissues, and it's got all these little canals. So when you're rebounding, so your feet hit the ground and then you're up in the air, and when you're at that peak, every gate opens. And then when your feet touch the mat, every gate closes. And when you jump up again, every gate opens. Can you see the pumping system that's happening with your lymphatic system when you are rebounding? And in those hot Bermudan summer days, you've got your rebounder in the corner in the lounge room where you can't go outside. There's no jarring with rebounding. Just start gentle and then move up to it. 5 minutes, 3 times a day, that's not much, is it? That's nothing. Or you can do your interval by doing 5 minutes 3 times altogether in your morning. So you can do your 30 seconds by running on the rebounder, and then your health bounce is just the slow one, and then rebounding again. I was talking to a group of employees in the insurance company earlier in the week, and I made the suggestion, I said, if you can get a rebounder in this office and everyone has 1 minute every hour, I said the productivity in this office would go like that. That's it, just 1 minute every hour. So exercise must be a daily thing. Number 6. Number 6 is proper diet. We looked at proper diet when we looked at diabetes. We looked at the 3 essential food groups. Do you remember them? Fibre, protein, and the healthy fats. Fats as they came from the hand of the Creator. Carbohydrates aren't bad. Remember, it's only when they're overdone and refined. So get the carbs down and the fibre, protein, and fat up. They prevent hunger. Number 7 is use of water. We need to be drinking, on an average, 8 glasses of water a day. More if you're bigger than me. And Also more if you're physically working outside perspiring. That's common sense, isn't it? And do you remember the way to get the water inside the cell? Take that little bit of Celtic salt. If you can't find Celtic salt, get a bottle of seawater and just have a little mouthful before every glass of water. And that'll get the water inside the cell. And remember, little by little by little. Take half a glass when you get out of bed. Or before you get out of bed, half a glass. Get out of bed, get dressed, another half a glass. Go to the bathroom, another half glass. Pray, another half a glass. Read your Bible, another half. You're getting a lot of water in. And 8 is trust in divine power. This is the 8th law of health. Trust in divine power. And Isaiah 26 verse 3 says, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, he whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusteth in thee." I find that some people, especially women who are postmenopausal, are beginning to have anxiety attacks, are beginning to have trouble sleeping, all because of the high estrogen from the pill that we're on many years ago, because progesterone is your calmer, it's your happy hormone. And what happens is a lady may have a panic attack and then she's begun a pathway. And the more she goes down there, the stronger the pathway gets. In fact, one lady recently emailed me and she'd gone to hospital with panic attacks. They took her home. An hour later, she was back in the hospital. You know what you've got to think? What are they going to do in there? Do you know that you can do so much by just breathing deeply, having a crystal of salt, a big glass of water, starting to laugh at something silly, and just breathing deeply and saying to yourself, everything's all right. Tomorrow, in the first part of the lecture, I'm going to show you the parts of your brain where your feeling is and your decision is. Knowing the distinction between those two parts, knowing what strengthens and weakens each part, it enables you to be in a position where you can actually say that to yourself, it's all right, and to calm down. There's 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the Bible says, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." So if a panic attack's coming, what does the Bible want us to do? Be very thankful. Because once you conquer your panic attacks, which you can help the next person. What about sleeplessness? That can be very, very frustrating. So it's a good idea to have breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper, so you haven't got digestion rumbling away when you go to bed. And also memorising scripture. Do you know, it's a great pastime. It's one of my favourite pastimes. And most people give up too soon. I'll be memorising all week, and at the end of the week I'll try and say it and I can't say it. You just don't give up. It's just like, if you've seen concert pianists, beautiful playing, just magnificent. Do you know they practice 8 hours a day for 2 weeks before they present? So that's what I say. What are we prepared to put into this? And they're playing for a performance. We're actually preparing for our latter years of life, which I actually want to enjoy. I want my daughter Jessica to come out one morning. Maybe I'm 99 like my grandmother was. Oh, Mum hasn't come in for breakfast. Oh, she's lying down on the path. Oh, she's dead. How nice. Maybe I've got a gardenia in my hand. Do you know, we've all got to die, is that right? And not in every case, but in many cases, the way we live determines the way we die. So God wants a people who are fit, active, and ready to work for him, no matter what the age. Is that right? Moses didn't retire, did he? No. And that's why adhering to those 8 laws of health, they're the true healers. They're the true remedies. So the Anna's Wild Yam Cream can help. But if you're going to bed late and you're not exercising and you're not eating the plant-based diet, can you see that the yam cream is not going to be able to be as powerful? So every piece has to be in place. So ladies who are in your 50s and 60s, when your pelvic floor is very strong, then you can pass your Yoni Stones on to your daughters. And then they can pass them on to their daughters. One lady said that a week after hearing this lecture, she came home and on the kitchen table were the Yoni Stones and her husband's pointing to them. I got you a present. My gift. So I have a few questions here, so we'll go through our questions. Okay, what can I do for my thyroid problem? Well, I think this was written before this lecture, is that right? But let me just do some defining things. Absolutely, the going on the Anna's Wild Yam Cream to get that estrogen down, which is opposing the thyroid function. There's a book by Dr. David Brownstein. He's considered the world expert on iodine, and the book's called Iodine, Why You Need It and Why You Can't Live Without It. And he shows that under and overactive thyroid can be an iodine deficiency. I don't think that should be too much of a problem on the wonderful island of Bermuda, because there is nowhere that is far from the sea, yeah? And those, the sprays from the sea, the crashing of the waves, the iodine basically goes into a gaseous form and lands on the land. So all your vegetables grown here would have their iodine levels. Now you can buy iodized salt, but that's sodium, chloride and iodine, whereas seawater is 92 minerals. And as soon as you open the iodized salt, well, not as soon as you open it, but in about an hour, all the iodine's gone. Got that? So when you walk along the beach in the morning, breathe in deeply and you might get some of your iodine. Your thyroid gland needs selenium to convert iodine into thyroxine. And if a person has mercury fillings in their mouth, mercury has an affinity for selenium. You only need 5 Brazil nuts a day to get all your selenium levels. But meantime, get your mercury fillings replaced, ideally. So that's what you can do for your thyroid, and make sure you exercise, because your thyroid controls metabolism. And the only way to change your metabolic rate is exercise. Okay, need to know more about whole wheat flour. Haven't I said enough? You want to know more. You want me to repeat it. Now, there's a very good book called Wheat Belly by Dr. William Davis, and he gives the whole story. But basically, it was hybridized in the 50s, went worldwide in the 70s, so by the 1990s. And the farmers love it, because they get 10 times more grain per acre. That's 10 times more dollar per acre. So it's everywhere, it's everywhere. And the problem, again, has arisen because most people, especially vegetarians, overdo the wheat. Because many people, when they stop wheat, they go to the pastas, the cereals, the breads. And so when a person stops wheat, which I'm sure you're all inspired to do for 2 months, once you conquer your sinus, your irritable bowel, constipation, eczema, all the sinus psoriasis, once they're conquered, you can probably have a little bit now and then. But it's the hybridization of the wheat that has ruined it, unfortunately. But then again, a little now and then, not a big deal, once you've conquered your problem. Question: what are some natural ways of treating serious premenstrual problems like painful cramps, insomnia, and mood swings? And I know this was written before this lecture, but I have seen implementing this program has changed so many lives. In fact, the people that make Anna's Wild Yam Cream, that's all they do. They're not a huge company that sells 1,000 products, it's just the Anna's Yam Cream. They have filing cabinets full of people who've been helped. In fact, she said there are many babies today whose names are Anna. Couples unable to have children, and then implementing this, they were able to. How nice. Can ADD and ADHD be treated naturally? It can. The book Stop Autism Now is also about attention deficit syndrome and ADHD. And in that book, basically he says stop the wheat, dairy, refined sugar, start supplementing with the coconut oil. And you can get amazing turnarounds in those things. How can a young person addicted to marijuana be encouraged to kick the habit? How can they get help? Can natural herbs help? And how can a hormone imbalance be treated naturally? Ta-da, we've looked at that one. Now, for a young person to get off marijuana, they need to want to get off marijuana. So once they make a decision that they would like to stop marijuana, I really believe that it's the power of God that will enable a person to do that. Yes, they can do it naturally. A couple of days of just juice fasting, running along the beach every day, diving in the water, climbing up hills, and I've done a lot of that over the last few days. Being outside and getting the mind off it, and then being away from other people that smoke it, they definitely can stop it. And I've seen many do that. Can bipolar be cured or managed without drugs? It can. I have met 5 people in my travels who were diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, and are medication-free and managing well. As a psych nurse, I would never have thought that possible. And when you begin to have a look, do you know what makes it very difficult? Is when a person is medicated, they almost become like zombies. And it's almost impossible for them to choose to do what you've got to do to conquer it. That's what's very sad about it. But where there's a will, there's a way. Do you know, the power of God is able. You know, he is able to conquer everything. But I'm constantly astounded how implementing these natural laws, how it improves mind function. And that's what we're going to look at tomorrow. So yes, it can be, and I have seen it. What are the effects of resveratrol on the frontal lobe? Well, tomorrow we'll look at the frontal lobe, and you will see that those drugs can certainly shut it down. 1% of psychiatrists are treating mental illness with nutrition. Isn't that good news? Not many, but they are there. And there are books that show it. Dr. Neil Nedley, who's an American doctor, he wrote a book called Depression: A Way Out. Very good book on dealing with mental illness. And also Bruce Fife's books, they also show how you can help. How does one best treat scurvy, is it? Oh no, scarring of the lungs. One of the best ways to treat scarring of the lungs is to make sure that everything that's breathed in is the best air. So you have to be very careful in Bermuda that you're not near any mould or any chemicals. And the sea air has negative ions in it. They're electrically charged oxygen molecules. So walking along that beach every single morning and breathing very deeply and learning how to breathe deep, learning how to breathe from the abdominal muscles. And castor oil compresses on the chest. Castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil, and wherever it penetrates, it can break up lumps, bumps, congestions, adhesions. It's a remarkable oil. If you put into YouTube Barbara O'Neill poultices, there's a that's a nice ring. It'll show you how to make the castor oil compress, but that should be worn ideally for 5-6 hours every day, and that can penetrate deep and break up the scar tissue. Can we eat mushrooms as it's said to be a fungus? If someone has a yeast problem in their body, they should keep away from mushrooms. If someone has cancer, keep away from mushrooms. If you don't have cancer and if you don't have a fungal problem, to have mushrooms occasionally, fine. So it depends on what's happening in your body. Right, can you explain what's that? The appendix has two functions. I have done that. Yes, I have mine removed. Will that be a problem? Do you know your body is an amazing piece of machinery in its ability to adapt and adjust? So if someone has had their appendix removed, remembering that appendix is the colon's oil can, so it lubricates contents as it goes through, and it releases antibacterial fluid, so that if what's coming out of the colon is toxic, it'll calm it down. So if you don't have an appendix, make sure you're not eating anything toxic. And one of the most toxic things that you can eat, it's not toxic, it appears to be when you eat it, but by the time it gets down there it is, and it's meat. So meat putrefies. So if someone hasn't got an appendix, they should keep right away from meat. And they should make sure they're on a plant-based diet and also having good oils, because that helps to lubricate. Then they should not have any problems. Is it good to exercise before or after breakfast in the morning? When you have your breakfast, all your body's energies are going here. And if you exercise, your body's energies are going to be called to your working muscles, which will compromise your digestion. And that's often why a person might get a cramp. Say if they swim just after a meal or heavy exercise after the meal. You know what the cramp is? It's just the body protesting, say, hey, we're busy here. Give us a go. But you can exercise probably an hour and a half, 2 hours after the meal when most of the digestion has started to happen. Is it wise to stop taking antiplatelet medication if you have stent implants? Some have 1, 2, 3 or 4. Also calcium tablets, well, we know they're out. If you have changed to a proper diet and exercise, do you know I believe it is possible on a plant-based diet, and what we showed last night, a person can stop cholesterol-lowering medication immediately with no adverse effect. Actually, there is a side effect if you stop your cholesterol-lowering medication. Your memory will return, and your muscles will get stronger because your muscle wasting will stop, and your tendency to Alzheimer's will go. Do you remember what I said? One other side effect of cholesterol-lowering medication was breast cancer. They've just added that, and you can see why. Because if you don't have enough cholesterol, it interferes with your body making your sex hormones. So cholesterol-lowering medication can stop immediately with no adverse effects. If you stop your blood thinning medication, ideally, first of all, you make sure you're having at least 8 glasses of water a day, having that little bit of salt before each glass, and just drinking half a glass at a time all through the day on a plant-based diet. I have known people to do that. Exercise is important, so you have to look at swimming or cycling or rebounding, those types of exercise. And I have seen people do it, but it must be done cautiously. I think I gave you the story of Henry, the guy who was on 6 medications. And who took him off his medication? His doctor, because he began to implement everything and the levels came back to normal. Is there a way to make distilled water better for you? Well, I guess if you're having the salt before every glass of water, you're having that little bit of salt. Can one get off high blood pressure pills and cholesterol? Absolutely, cholesterol tablets can stop, and I gave you plenty of research that you can check out for yourself. One of the best is The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, the cardiovascular British surgeon, who shows very clearly that it's a con. So they can be stopped immediately. Your high blood pressure pills. Blood pressure doesn't come down quickly, so you can do what Henry did in the story I told you. He changed his lifestyle. He went to a plant-based diet. He started drinking more water. He started exercising. He was on the hawthorn berry tablets. And who took him off his blood pressure meds? The doctor, because he went to the doctor and his blood pressure had come right down. Now, what had also happened was, because he'd changed his diet, he had lost weight. And when you lose weight, that automatically affects your blood pressure. How often should you take Celtic salt? Every day, before each glass of water. So that's 8 times a day, at the start of every glass. Dr. Robert Thompson says all you're doing when you do that is replacing the minerals you lost yesterday. I have extremely dry skin. What am I lacking? So the detective hat has to be put on. Is that person drinking enough water? Is that person eating some good oils? Some people naturally have drier skin than others. I have never had dry skin, and I had a lot of acne when I was a teenager, but my girlfriends with peaches of cream complexion, now in their 60s, have very dry skin. So I guess you have your pluses somewhere. So I don't put anything on my skin, but I certainly eat good amounts of nuts, seeds, and olive oil. So really, you can nourish your skin best from the inside. Can erectile dysfunction be reversed? It can. As we've looked at, implementing these 8 laws, exercise is very important because it increases the blood supply to the area and for the man, the his yam cream. It has helped many a man with that. Why do you need to keep your kidneys warm? Why do you need to keep your feet warm? Because perfect health requires perfect circulation. And perfect circulation means that every part of my body is the same temperature. Because if my hands are cold, there's not a lot of blood going in there. And if they get cold, you've got to do something to warm them up again. Maybe just clap hands or... And kidneys, if your kidneys aren't warm, they're cold. And if they're cold, there's not a lot of blood going in there. And if not a lot of blood's going into your kidneys can't filter your blood. In fact, a lot of young girls get urinary tract infections purely because their kidneys are cold. So their kidney can't function, it can't filter the blood properly. What's a good remedy for poor blood circulation in the feet? Exercise. Because exercise gets the circulation out to the extremities. Never should you let the feet get cold. So if you get into bed at night with cold feet, guess what? They're going to stay cold. So have a hot shower, warm yourself up. As soon as you get out of the shower, dry your feet and put warm slippers on and then get into your warm bed. I never, in the night, if I need to go to the bathroom, I never put my feet on the tiles, because what will happen to my feet? They'll get cold. So you've got to keep them warm. Now, on my poultice lecture on YouTube, I show how to make cayenne pepper compresses for the bottom of the feet. And those cayenne pepper compresses bring the blood to the feet. So we've had many a guest with cold feet because unfortunately their feet have got into the habit of getting cold and you've got to break that habit. But you put cayenne pepper on the bottom of your feet every night. After a couple of days, they'll be warm. You'll probably want to walk on the cold tile. Hernia of the groin, what can be done, please? Do you know, the problems with hernias is it's 2 muscles that have been split. And every time you laugh, every time you cough, every time you go to the bathroom, it comes out. So you might be able to heal it if you lay very still in a bed for 3 months and don't move and don't go to the bathroom and don't walk and don't breathe. It's a very simple operation to just stitch those 2 pieces of muscle together. So with a hernia, that's about the only way it can be done. question there. What causes nasal drip and how to stop it? One of the main causes of nasal drip is wheat, dairy, refined sugar. Because when there is an intolerance to wheat, dairy, refined sugar, it builds up mucus in the eustachian tubes and you get that drip, drip, drip. Now remember, if you stop the wheat, dairy and refined sugar, it might be 2 months before it's out of your system totally. You can eat a slice of bread and it'll be out of your body in 24 hours, but the effect remains, especially if you've had this for years. I have a fat lymphoma. How can I get rid of it instead of an operation to cut it out? One of the problems with cutting it out is it can just grow again. But castor oil compresses can help. But also exercise, because when you exercise, you increase blood right out to the extremities, to every part of the body. And also exercise, particularly rebounding, stimulates your lymphatic system. Remember, that's your body's vacuum cleaner, helps to get rid of these things. But at the same time, try a castor oil compress. The castor oil compress can be used again and again and again because it's not drawing anything out of you, it's like a vehicle holding the oil to go into you. Can you heal cryptic tonsils? What do you suggest to use? Do you know one of the main problems of tonsil problems is an allergy to wheat, dairy, refined sugar? Have I said this before? So it's eliminating that and allowing the tonsils to heal. And you can gargle with a little castor oil. You don't want to swallow that stuff, but you could gargle and spit it out. Oil pulling's very good too. That's putting coconut oil in your mouth, swishing several times if you've given it a go, and then spit it out on the grass, rinse your mouth, and that can help bring things up from the tonsils. You can also put castor oil compresses around the neck overnight because that will penetrate through into the tonsils. Oatmeal is a hybrid. Well, I guess you'd have to check that out. Organic oats aren't, so you can check that one out. Tofu is toxic. It has a strand like estrogen. Well, as we just looked at, the only toxic tofu really is your genetically modified tofu that's been grown with herbicides and insecticides. And it says that it had a strand like estrogen. Remember, it's a delicate estrogen. And it actually protects your estrogen receptor sites from the really toxic estrogens. And so it's great when you have a question like that and you know the facts. Because remember, we should never make any decisions based on fear. We should make decisions based on fact. And when we have the facts, then we have faith. And faith is the victory that overcomes the world. And God said in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And a sound mind is able to take in the facts and allow God to give them the faith that is necessary. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, where I'm going to be talking about the part of the brain where we make our decisions, and I'm also going to be showing you what weakens and strengthens that part of the brain, because our decisions determine our destiny. And in the second part of that lecture, we'll begin at 11 o'clock, we're going to be looking at the basic laws that govern the functioning of the brain. And in that lecture, we're going to be looking at all the spiritual, mental and emotional aspects of disease. So please bow your heads while we close. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for giving us wisdom and knowledge and understanding on how our hormones work. Thank you, Father, for showing us the things that have caused the disruption, but most of all, we thank you for showing us how we can bring back the balance. Thank you again for bringing us here, and thank you for this information and knowledge. And I pray, Father, that every soul here will be empowered to be able to make the decisions and the changes in their life that will give them better quality of life. We pray these things tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Before you leave, just real quick, if you have one of these cards, we're just asking that you just turn this in at the front. Also, if you feel blessed to just leave a free will gift and offering. And also just remember, tomorrow is the last day. The information on the screen if you need it, and just an invite by our health director.
Yeah, as you go out, you may see a brochure. It says Nature's Way, but that's not the theme. It's going to be Health Weekend at Rockaway Seventh-day Adventist Church in 2 weeks from now. It's not Nature's Way. The theme is actually looking at the whole aspect of whatever you do it with all you got. You know, something about making a commitment that involves all of you that has a way of transforming our lives. And it's our lack of total commitment that results in our constant failure. So take a look at that, and it promises to be really exciting. Messages, question and answer, and also cooking class. All right? Thank you. You are dismissed.